Have you been taught to swing low to high? Or maybe saw a video that told you not to swing low to high? Let's get into the mechanics of the swing path on the modern forehand right now. Hi, it's Chris Lewitt, top American junior coach and coach to many #1 juniors in the United States. Let's talk about swing mechanics and the swing path. I'll go over some essentials. I'll show you some videos of my students, some videos of the top pros, and I'll explain why it's important to swing low to high, how the modern forehand swing looks, and we'll talk about other nuances related to the swing path and even the follow-throughs and finish. Stay tuned, it's going to be great. So basically the follow-through is high and the swing path is low to high, and that's the way it has to be in terms of the laws of physics and the laws of geometry. Is you have to be able to take the racket underneath the ball. The racket has to come well below the ball, and then you need to lift as you swing and you extend and then you finish high. Typically, I like the low finish after the high finish, so you go low, high, low, and I've talked about that in other videos and you can check that out. But essentially, it's not correct to say that you don't swing low to high. If you swing linearly like this and the racket is on the same level as the ball, you're going to get very minimal spin, if any. You'll typically hit the ball flat. You might be able to get a touch of spin if you're slightly below the ball, but what you should be really looking for is where the racket is in relationship to the ball. The racket has to be under the ball. But typically the racket is only 6 to 12 inches below the ball. So on most shots, the only time the racket would drop way below the ball, if this is the ball and this is the racket, would be on a heavy topspin looping shot, a high kicking shot, maybe a topspin lob. You might drop the racket very steeply below the ball where you'd have this type of angle coming up. But just in general, the racket's going to be 6 inches to 12 inches. That's a good way to think about it, the racket below the ball. And so it's not correct to say that the racket stays on the same level as the ball. That would only be for a flat or mostly flat shot, a straight trajectory shot. So in general in tennis, the net is the enemy, and you need to get the racket below the flight of the incoming ball to get under it and lift the ball and pass over the net, because the net is your biggest obstacle. So you should never teach or learn to swing straight in a straight line, because that would put you in jeopardy of hitting the net. You always want to drop the racket head below the ball. So I think some confusion is that sometimes you look at high-speed video, and I'll show you guys a bunch of videos in slow motion. We'll look at the pros and a few of my students as well, and you'll see that sometimes the hand is at the level of the ball. The hand can be at the level of the ball, but the racket has been flipped over, and the wrist has dropped the racket below the ball, and that creates a lot of space underneath the ball to brush and lift up. So you really shouldn't look at what the hand is doing. Although with a lot of recreational players and players, especially lower level players, they do sometimes drop excessively below the ball. So they get their hand down here and then they swing from there. And there are actually some coaches who teach that. Sometimes I like to teach that to kids who are really struggling. I usually don't focus on the hand though, I focus on them like scraping the ground with the racket. And that's actually a great drill for topspin. If you're just learning, you're having struggles with topspin, you can take the racket, touch the ground, and then touch the ball. It's a really good drill. Scrape the ground, scrape the ball. So you get the racket really low to the ground. So in that case, you would exaggerate to get way under if you're struggling with topspin, but you'd never want to swing like that on a normal rally shot. You'd never want to swing just way down here. The only time you would do that is when you're just learning in an exaggerated way, trying to learn topspin. Scrape the ground, scrape the ball. Scrape the ground, scrape the ball is a great exercise if you're struggling with your topspin. But as you get more advanced, you're going to want to keep that racket on very near the level of the ball, but it has to be below the ball, because if you're above the ball, or if you're at the same level of the ball, you're going to hit the ball like a line drive, and you're not going to be able to lift it over the net. And that's the most important thing, clearing the net, or you lose the point. So guys, make sure you swing low to high, but you might want to check and see how low you're getting. You don't want to get too low, because that's kind of inefficient. Sometimes I see players and they have like a ball here at their eye level, and they're preparing down here with their racket. Their racket is flipped and the racket's down by their ankle, but the ball's up here. So that can't be right. You know, you want to line up the racket similar to the level of the ball, but you're always going to drop the racket 6 to 12 inches below the ball, no matter what. On pretty much every shot, unless you're slapping a winner, you might level it out to slap a power flat shot, for example. So you do want to watch out for those discrepancies where the ball is up here and the racket's super low, and then there's like an inefficient pathway to the ball. You'd like to keep the racket similar to the level of the ball. So on a high ball up here, let's say it's on level 10, you would get your racket on level 8 or 9. If you have a low ball here, you'd prepare lower. Level 3, you'd prepare the racket on level 2 or level 1 below the ball. So that's a good way to think about it. If you have like floors of a building, you have a certain height of the ball, and then you have just want to be a floor or two below the ball. But you don't want to have like a ball in the penthouse and your racket's down here in the basement. That's not an efficient pathway to the ball. All right? Ready? Okay, 6 topspin forehands. Here we go. 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. Good job. Okay, so it's important to film and look from the side here. From the side, if I toss from here, or if you have a partner do it, you can see how low the racket is, or you can capture it on video and you can check it that way. But you want to see how low the racket is getting below the ball. It should be about at least 6 inches to 12 inches below the ball, but you don't want to go excessively below the ball. That's something you would want to correct if the hand or the racket goes excessively below the ball. Let's see where you're at, Sophia. Good topspin forehand. Very nice. Those are great forehands. Here we go. Very nice. Okay, so we have like a low finish where you're fully inverted down by the hip. That's very common nowadays. Nice, that was super good hip finish, Sophia. So you go out and around, and then you get this nice internal shoulder rotation and windshield wiper action, and you actually follow through to your hip. Okay, that one was the other variation that I wanted to talk about, which is the finish right at the elbow crease, which is sometimes called the antecubital space or the bicep. So you can follow through right to the side of the bicep or the elbow, and that's also a very common low finish where you're still fostering great ISR, internal shoulder rotation, and wiper movement. Do that one. Right, that's very common too. These are both very good low follow-through variations. Nice, great. Okay, this is just a simple exercise that I love, and as I've mentioned in other videos, I love setting up a high string. I think it's an essential tool for learning a modern forehand and working on topspin. It's just a fantastic, very simple device, and I highly recommend it. So Sophia's just going to work on some topspin above the string, and I'm going to be watching very carefully to see how low her racket goes. I don't want her racket to go excessively low, but she has to get under the ball. It's like by the laws of physics and geometry, she has to get under the ball to lift the ball over the net. I mean, it's crazy not to say get under the ball. She's got to get her racket under the ball. That's great. That's it. Come on, up above the yellow. That yellow line is a great, great visual for the players to work on. And you work on swinging fast. Fast above the yellow, that's it. Fast above the yellow. Yeah, but that was perfect. But if your racket doesn't get below the ball, I mean, you're never going to be able to lift that ball. So Always swing low to high there. So a great little trick is if you identify that you're dropping the racket excessively low, you're dropping the hand super low, like the ball's this height, and you're dropping the racket below the ball way down here, you're dropping your wrist down here, racket and hand, then you can simply set up a barrier like this. Like I'm using 2 chairs. We have a low bench. A bench is great, any kind of standard tennis bench that might be on the court. And you can set up a low tabletop, and then you just work on your swing, and you make sure that the racket stays above the level that you want. So you, okay. And that way you're getting topspin and you're not getting too far below the ball. You work on your swing path here, you can shadow. And you don't want to come down in this space. That's where it comes. Very inefficient way to swing. So I'm getting good topspin, but I'm not getting too low. Guys, I hope you got a lot out of this video and learned about the swing paths on the modern forehand. Please don't swing high to low, and please don't swing straight through the ball. You should swing low to high. All right, if you like that and you want to learn more about the modern forehand or the ATP forehand or the next gen forehand, check out one of my videos on the forehand right here. I'll see you guys on the next program.